Hello and welcome to the Pop Off PC Mag show where we talk about video games. And today we're talking about new consoles. No preamble, no bits, nothing. It's all been leading up to this. Will Greenwald, 2020 is all in the world of video games has all been about waiting for the next generation of consoles. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, which we learned about,
Yep,
months after the fact. You have all of them and you've been using them. What is what?
they're cool.
Okay.
I've been playing a lot of stuff on Xbox One X, and Xbox Series X is
I've
going to
also been
happen,
playing on Xbox One X.
and PlayStation 5, which no one makes any mistakes for that. They don't accidentally say PlayStation 4. Microsoft's naming conventions are always very weird. These are next-gen systems, and we're reaching this point where the graphical update is impressive. Like, I'm playing like this 4K game, and it's like a nice flat 30, and it's consistent and it looks amazing. But it's also like, is this really that much better than PS4 Pro and Xbox One X? And
Okay, so where you want to start off? Xbox One X or Xbox Series X, Series S?
yeah, sure,
Okay,
let's talk about that.
okay,
Uh,
that's out first. So yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, but like a day or two.
2 days, that's something. We gotta have some sort of metric.
Yeah. Well, the big problem with that is that Microsoft, in pushing Xbox as this like omni platform, is kind of not really saying we're going to have any exclusive games for the Xbox Series X/S. It's going to be like, it's going to come out on the Xbox One as well. So that raises the question of, okay, so why get an Xbox Series X when it launches? And making the case uh, for a system when it launches, and when its pickings are already going to be kind of tiny, when there aren't any exclusive games for it, it's kind of a tough sell, because it's a $500 box. It is a big box, and it works great. It's really cool. It loads fast. It feels good to play.
I
But
heard it gets super hot. Is that true?
not that I've noticed.
Okay.
I've been playing
People
a fair
lie.
bit of
People
stuff on
tell
it.
me people not telling the truth on the internet. Will.
And sometimes people just get busted up review units. It can happen.
It's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, we joke, but that's part of the risk of being an early adopter. Is yeah,
Yep,
you're right. Sometimes the hardware kind of has these issues here. So
like
cool.
the first gen Xbox 360.
You turned my joke into a legitimate point.
Yep. But it's cool. I'm playing it on a 4K TV with HDR. Things look great. I've been playing a Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is kind of an amazing game because, hey, for the seventh main game in this series, they turned it into a JRPG with turn-based combat, which is a bold choice,
Yeah, it's
and
kind of
I
a
like
flex,
it.
huh? Yeah.
But I'm very curious to see how people are going to respond to this game.
Well, if not, they can play like the 6 other ones that
Yeah,
play how they
oh, there's
play.
more than
So
six.
yeah, so
There's Zero. There's Dead Souls. There's the Fist of the North Star one.
and like part of what's cool about what Microsoft's doing here is that their backwards compatibility is such that like, although are any of those games on Xbox actually? Now that I say it, of Yakuza.
Maybe I'd need to check.
Okay, but regardless, like for other old games, they've made it very easy to play them on these new consoles and kind of get these benefits just sort of through like brute force, right?
Yeah, pretty much any Xbox One game is going to work on it. Although the Xbox 360 and Xbox original, the OG Xbox backwards compatibility is, there's a list of like a few hundred games and there is stuff on it. But let's just say I tried to put in my disc of Sneak King for the 360 and it didn't load.
Damn
So
it!
yeah, I know, I was bummed. Last gen, you're totally covered with both systems because PS4 also works with PS5, like those games work. But going past that, it's kind of an inconsistent list for the Xbox Series X, and it is, maybe it's on PlayStation now. Otherwise, you better keep your old hardware if you have a PlayStation 5.
So
Not
so what about
past the
just
PS4.
what about just things like how is the controller any different? How's like the interface? Kind of this that. I mean, like I don't know what else really is there to talk about until new games come out, but like
Yeah, well,
there's no
the Xbox
Connect this
Series
time.
X's
Yeah.
gamepad is very similar to the old one. Like the triggers are a little bit textured. They feel a little nicer, and the direction pad is now sort of like an 8-direction plate instead of a plus shape, kind of like the one you can switch out with the Xbox Elite controller.
Oh yeah, sweet.
And there's a dedicated capture button now, so you can just take screenshots with it instead of like pausing, pressing the guide button, and making it take screen caps, or plugging in your Kinect if you have the Xbox One and saying record that. And no, I do not believe Kinect works at all with the Xbox Series X, so sorry for fans who will be disappointed by that. It feels very similar, but that's fine because the Xbox One, Xbox 360, Xbox, like this is a controller that is lasting for a long time and feels good to play. And advantage that it has over the PlayStation, the DualShocks, it takes AA's. So its battery isn't like the life isn't going to just die after you play the hell out of it for hours and hours and hours, which I have killed like 2 DualShock 4s in that like time.
Can you
They
recharge it
just
though?
they don't keep it charged sometimes.
Can you recharge the Xbox controller though? Like as a rechargeable
If you use
battery?
rechargeable batteries,
Okay, all right.
but not if you use regular AA's. But
So you have a choice.
yes.
Okay, cool.
Uh,
What about now, the Series X is, the kind of big flagship one, but also this generation Microsoft's doing something interesting where they're putting out a lower powered version that's cheaper, the Xbox Series S, which you also have,
the
which
Series
I'm
S is
kind of maybe more interested in.
it is interesting, and it's definitely the best priced new generation console. It's going to be just $300, and it can supposedly do games at 4K or at least output at 4K. But based on the raw power, it seems comparable to, but in some ways not quite as strong as the Xbox One X. According to the graphic crunching numbers, it does 4 teraflops and the One X does 6 teraflops, which is a little weird.
Okay, but it has a more modern CPU, I think.
It does, yes.
Okay.
It's definitely more modern in that sense. It has a 0.5 terabyte SSD, so you're going to get the benefits of the faster loading times. But in terms of like pure power, it seems comparable to, not necessarily stronger than the One X. Like there's some ways the X might edge it out a little bit in graphics processing.
Interesting. Now you mentioned the loading times. Have you like kind of anecdotally felt that difference?
A bit, yeah. I honestly felt it a bit more with PlayStation 5, just because with Miles Morales, like I've been fast traveling through the subway and it just loads in seconds. But even with Yakuza, the save games load in like 6 seconds. Like it definitely is faster. It isn't like super blazingly ultra fast, but it's definitely faster.
All right, well, you mentioned Miles Morales and the PS5, so that seems like a good transition as any to talk about the other next-gen console that you have that is coming out or out by the time you're watching this, the 5th PlayStation. I think it is ugly as sin. That's my immediate takeaway from it.
It looks like it should be in like somewhere in the United Arab Emirates as just like a symbol of drastic class disparity.
Oh man, that's a great. Is that gonna be in your review?
No, but well, maybe.
Okay.
And this one isn't even mine, but it's so strong I want to just repeat it, that it looks like the model of a building that an evil business developer would have in a movie where they're trying to knock down a youth center.
Can you cite that joke? Forever came up with it.
I'm afraid I can't. It is lost to the winds of Twitter.
Dang. Well, at least
whoever said it.
At least you're honest. But yeah, but you know what? As ugly as it looks, at least it has some exclusive games on it. Granted, some of them are PS4 cross-gen, but including Miles Morales Spider-Man. At the time of recording, they put out this new trailer showing like the new Spider-Verse suit, where it's kind of like half frame
Which I just unlocked today.
Oh, sweet. So how's that? Yeah. How's this? This is the game that makes me want to get this thing, even though I think it looks like legitimately hideous, like to the point of being a deal breaker. Yeah. But that game looks incredible. Like
Miles Morales is freaking great. Like it's Spider-Man, but you're playing Miles Morales, and it is Spider-Man. It's pretty much the same game, just with a separate story and just some separate stuff. And Miles gets a few extra powers. If you're familiar with his comic book life, you know that he gets a few extra spider tricks that Peter doesn't get. But it's really, really good. And New York looks fantastic, even if it isn't the most accurate one ever. It is fun whenever you see a virtual.
You're right. People are hanging out. It's very not accurate.
That
people
too, yeah.
Gathering and talking to each other.
There is that. It's really good, and there are so many different costumes you can get, including there is the Into the Spider-Verse one. I rewatched Into the Spider-Verse a week or two ago, and that movie's still great. Like, it's fantastic.
Beautiful. That movie, yeah.
The costume has this mod that you can actually put on any other costume that they say it emulates what the Into the Spider-Verse, like it implies what the Into the Spider-Verse movie looks like. Mm-hmm. What it seems to do is it makes your frame rate 24 while the rest of the game's frame rate is 60.
Nice.
Or 30. So like it looks really weird because like Spider-Man is just like moving in that weird kind of janky, like the motion that the movie itself did, where it plays with frame rate. And doing that against this like really smooth, like flat 30, flat 60 in the game itself is extremely jarring, and I turned it off.
Okay.
It's still a great costume. And there's also one from that's like animated style, where it's like Miles Morales is like a cartoon, kind of like the Spectacular Spider-Man version.
That was the
From,
coolest looking part of the PS4 game to me, was
yeah,
that suit that did that, and kind of thought, I kind of hope it kind of made the rest of the game look like, why you go with this?
I'll tell you,
Anyway,
I'd love to see just a full game that's just that
yeah,
instead
I think
of
that would look a lot better than their
yeah.
weird like hyper detailed stuff. But yeah, I think that's a standout game. Even though it's kind of like it's not like a full game
I haven't been
still.
trying. I haven't had any other like next gen games yet because they aren't available yet. I am hoping to try out Demon Souls, but I haven't touched it yet. It looks incredibly good, but
You like those
we'll have to
games,
see.
right? You're one of those people.
Kind of. I'm weird in that I really like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, but I kind of hate the original Dark Souls.
Okay,
But that's its own
that's a
discussion.
longer conversation than we have time for.
It's extremely
One that I'm
long.
legitimately fascinated by, but that's
But there is the PlayStation Plus collection. So if you have PS Plus, you get this list of like 20 bangers of PS4 games you can play on the PS5. It's like, God of War 2018, Crash Insane Trilogy, Persona 5, not the Royal though. So yeah, I don't know. Last of Us remastered, I think, or Uncharted 4, like a bunch of really good games. So if you like, getting PlayStation Plus is definitely worth it if you get a PS5.
and that's obviously, I think, Sony's strength over Microsoft is
Yep.
these, however you may feel about them, they've cultivated a lineup of first party games that is of note.
They certainly have. I'm surprised, and I think this is entirely because of Miles Morales and that the Ultimate Edition has the remastered Spider-Man for PS5. Spider-Man isn't actually part of the PS Plus collection, which is that kind of sucks, but I get why they did it.
Now, do you think the game looks better, like in
No.
ways you notice?
The PS4 games don't really look that much better. It's still like they clearly render it to 1080p.
But what Spider-Man though, the remaster?
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It
Okay.
has two settings. You can have it be 4K with like all the visual effects at a pretty solid 30. Like I've not seen any frame rate dips. Or you can have it render at a lower resolution with fewer visual effects and render it like a flat 60, and it looks so smooth. But I played in fidelity mode, which keeps it at 4K. It looks great. It's incredibly detailed. There's so much like it looks amazing.
They got Miles' hair right, which is no small feat when it comes to different kind of hair textures in video games. Now,
It's really good.
a game I've been hearing a lot about just from the sidelines is this Astro's Playroom sort of pack-in thing. Have you used
That is
that
a
at
game
all?
that comes on the system, and
Okay.
it's basically a 2 to 3, maybe 5 if you push it and complete it 100%. Little, you know, third-person platformer to show off the cool new DualSense controller that, because you go through these 4 different like worlds that represent parts of the system, like the cooling system, the graphics stuff, the memory, and it's just running around in these like Super Lucky's Tale type worlds, and just seeing what this fidelity and the smoothness looks like, and then going through gimmicky sections where like the vibration of the controller does something neat, or the adaptive triggers do something, and like just it shows off. It's a nice showcase of the PS5.
So what
And
do you think of the
trying.
what do you think of the controller though? Love it.
It's real good. It
Okay.
feels excellent. It feels a lot closer to the Xbox controllers than any previous DualShock, because it has like these big, like almost fang-shaped grips instead of the like little ones that have been on the PlayStation controller, like little rectangular like nubs for grips that have been there since like the original PlayStation controller. It's really good to grip, at least in my giant monster hands. And the adaptive controller is the adaptive, responsive, whatever they're calling it, triggers
The
are really
triggers, yeah.
fascinating,
Okay.
because yes, there is adjustable like force feedback, and it is a really precise force feedback similar to the HD Rumble and the Joy-Cons, and that's cool. But there's also adaptive resistance on the triggers. So like if you get like an Xbox Elite controller or Astro A40, Astro C40 controller, or some like different controllers have these trigger stops where you can just pull the trigger and it's shorter. You don't need to do it. You can set a switch and it goes shorter or goes longer, and you can adjust the sensitivity of that. You can do all that, but depending on the game and the context, the triggers will just adapt automatically to it. So like you might have like a really short little clicky trigger for this one game, or you might have a really long slow pull that's smooth, that like
Love
vibrates
a
with your
long,
race
love a
setting.
long slow pull.
It
Love
can
that.
happen. Uh, and it feels really fascinating to try out. Just the sort of resistance that you get with a trigger is fascinating. I'm excited to see if other games will actually take advantage of it in ways that feel unique and interesting, or if it'll go the way of the HD Rumble and the Joy-Cons, where it's like, hey, check out 1-2 switch, and then no one uses it.
I was gonna say, yeah. I remember we were both at that Switch event and milking those cows, and I think nothing really ever ended up topping that. So cool. So you're still testing them out. You're still working on your reviews, but
So
any
by the
sort of
time this goes up, our reviews will be up, and you'll be able to find out which, if any, I think is the better one, or which is better for you to buy, or just there's plenty of additional content to read and look at that's going to happen with the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
plenty of additional content. Always that's a great note to leave on. So yeah. So the next iteration, it's here. Check it out. PC Mag. We got you need to know about PS5, Xbox Series S and X. Will Greenwald, thanks for joining us,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next time.